Okay, now I want to talk about Emmet, which is one of my favorite plugins for brackets. It's also available for other IDEs like Sublime and Atom, but since I use brackets, I use the Emmet plugin for brackets. Now what I've done here is I've created just a blank file. I've saved it as emmet.html. The name of the file is not important. The extension of the file name is. When you save it as .html, .css, .js, then Emmet knows what type of file it's working with, so it knows which sort of shortcuts to allow you to use. So I've created an HTML file. Emmet I use most of all with my HTML, and I can type HTML:5. This is the shortcut for creating a blank HTML5 document. So I've typed that and I hit Tab. That shortcut writes this, so it's kind of the default template for starting my file. Now I've added a couple of things. This meta tag, this link tag, the h1 and the script tag, these are all things that I've edited in Emmet. Now I'm going to show you guys, after I show you how Emmet works, I'm going to show you as well how we can change the settings file for Emmet to create our own shortcuts. Okay, so I have my blank starter file here with everything that I typically have. I've got my viewport meta tag, a default link to a style sheet, my script tag down at the bottom of the body. So these are all things that I typically put in any web page that I'm building. Now, inside of the body, I want to use some of the keyboard shortcuts that come with Emmet. Emmet allows me to write HTML really quickly by simply typing out what the CSS selectors for that HTML would be. So if I wanted an H2 tag, I can type H2 and hit Tab. It gives me that. Okay, that's not very exciting, but it saves me a couple of keystrokes. If I wanted to write H2 with some text inside, I can use these curly braces. Okay, now when I build things like nav menus, this is where we really start to see some of the power that's available. So I'm on a nav tag, and then I'm going to give that, or let's say I'll give it the ID nav as well. Inside of that, so as a child selector of the nav tag, I want to have a UL, and this is going to give it, I'm going to give it an ID menu. Inside the UL, I want to add 5 list item tags. So the asterisk multiplies this out and allows me to create 5 of these things. Then inside of that, I want to have an anchor tag inside each one of those. Inside each one of those anchor tags, I'm going to put some text. So we put the curly braces and item, and let's throw a $sign in there. This $sign is going to be converted into the numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for this nav menu. So if I hit Tab, there we go. That one line of code, which after you've done it a couple of times becomes quite easy to type out, created the nav, the UL, the list items, the anchor tags, the text inside. It changed the numbers. It automatically, by default, added the href to the anchor tags. That's a default behavior. The 2 IDs got placed inside of here. All of that done with that one single line of CSS selectors. So a nav tag with the nav ID, and then inside of it, a UL with the menu ID. Inside of that, 5 list items. And inside each one of those, an anchor plus some text that says item and then the number. Tab, boom. Make sure your cursor is at the end of the line when you hit Tab. That's the trigger for doing the work that Emmet does. One other situation to be aware of. So if I'm doing main and then I've got an H2 tag, and then I want some text inside the H2, like this heading, and then if I do this, let's say I wanted to have 5 paragraph tags. Well, I'm running into a bit of an issue here because I'm saying that there's text inside of the H2, and then child of that is the paragraphs. So not really what I wanted. The paragraphs are inside this H2 tag. So let's step back a moment. The plus sign. This is saying to make something into a sibling. I still have the problem where these are now siblings of this. Alright, so I'll step up one more level, and we group these things together. So we're saying, okay, this is inside the H2, but this whole bracket, the plus sign, these paragraphs are siblings to this whole collection. So the P is actually going to be the sibling to that H2. There we go. So I've got my main, my H2, and then the paragraphs are siblings of the H2. Another thing that happens when you're building a lot of web pages, when you're starting out, is you often want to have some filler text inside of here. This is another thing that comes with, sorry, undo that. Comes with Emmet. We've got the paragraphs, the 5 of them. Inside each one of those, I want to put lorem. Lorem stands for the lorem ipsum text. So if I hit tab now, there we go. I have filled out the main, the H2, 5 paragraphs, and every one of the paragraphs has some lorem ipsum text, and you can see they all start with different parts, so it helps keep the illusion of that filler text that looks like it might be something real. Okay, so these are some of the shortcuts that you can get from Emmet. It allows you to write CSS selectors, and it will quickly generate the HTML. CSS, because it's already short, there's a couple of shortcuts that you get with CSS with Emmet. I don't tend to use them very often. One that I will use is, just to show you those 2 quick examples, let's say for my paragraph, I wanted to have padding and margin set to 0. I can go P:0, tab, M:0, tab, and it writes out the rest of those. Those tend to be the only ones that I use. There are others. If you go to the emmet.io website, you will find there's lots of others. docs.emmet.io/abbreviations. I'll put the link inside the comments for you guys. It talks about all kinds of different actions and things that you can do, and there is a section on CSS abbreviations, so you can go through and find out a few of the other ones. I don't tend to use them. I find I can type the CSS fairly quickly, but that's because I've been doing it for many, many years. It's up to you. I encourage you to go and take a look at the documentation for the CSS abbreviations. The HTML ones, I can't recommend it enough. Really will save you a lot of time. Taking a little bit of time to get used to what the keyboard shortcuts are and how you would nest things and how you would group things. Once you're comfortable with that, Emmet saves you a lot of time writing your HTML. This was only a couple of minutes, and I created the template for my web page here. Most of the page is done. Now, I did mention earlier that one of the things I had done was I edited the default template. I created my own shortcuts. So these 2 elements are not part of the default shortcut. The script and the H1, these are not part of the default template. It's things that I've added in. So I'm going to delete this whole thing, go back to the beginning. HTML5, tab, there we go. So this is what I'm currently creating with mine. One other shortcut, undo this. This HTML:5, there's actually an abbreviation for that. If you just hit !tab, that is the shortcut for HTML5. So create a new file, save it as .html, !, and tab, Boom, you've got your template. So let's look at how we can edit this template. In the GitHub repository, if you're ever looking for the location for these files that we're going to edit, or for the file that we're going to edit, I will also put this link inside the comments. It's the GitHub brackets wiki. There's a page for the extension locations, and depending on which operating system you're working with, this is how we're going to drill down. So Mac, which is what I'm on right now, we're going to start at the user folder, look for library, application support, brackets, extensions, user. And then once we get inside of the user folder, we're going to be looking for brackets-emmet. And then inside that, there's a node modules folder, emmet, lib, and then the file we want is SNIPPETS.JSON. I'm going to put that whole link inside of the comments so that you can find it yourself. And then we are going to open that file. So this is the file right here. These are all the shortcuts that Emmet understands. So these are all the abbreviations. What we're looking for is down in the 700s. Yeah, okay, there we are. So line 705. 706, sorry. This is the first one here. link:/CSS. This, by default, is not in the template when you create that default HTML file. I made one change in here. By default, this says styles. I changed this to say name. Just, I prefer that name, name.css, so I made that edit. The second change that I made was I created my own meta tag, meta:/mobile. For the viewport. There is another viewport meta tag that they have inside of here. I added mine because all I wanted was width equals device width, and I'm just going to stick with that. I can make changes to that, but this is the default that I want in my web pages. So I added a brand new one. This whole line right here. This is what was added. So I created a new property name and a new value for it. When you are creating yours, make sure you put the backslashes in front of the double quotes. They are escape sequences because the whole thing is wrapped in double quotes. This is JSON, so we have to be careful about that. So I made the change to link.css. I added this tag inside of here, and then I went down to around 820, somewhere around 820 line number. Okay, here we go. There is a doc command. That is being used by this one down here, the HTML5. There is another entry in here that says, if you type !, it's a shortcut for this HTML5. HTML5 is writing out the doc. And doc is this. And the lang is being passed, it's coming from another place inside this file, it's being passed in here, used to create the char set. So, what does this say? Well, if you look closely, this is really just the same sort of things that we are writing when we're using Emmet. We type out a bunch of stuff and hit tab at the end of it. That's what this file is doing. So we want the HTML tag, and then inside of that, start a bracket which ends right here, and then at the same depth as head, so a child of HTML, there is a body tag. And then I added this part at the end. Inside the body, I want to have an h1 tag with heading as the text, just the word heading, and then I'm adding a script tag with a source attribute. And this is one that I defined, or sorry, I didn't define this one. This is one that is up a little bit back up here, I believe, before the inputs. Yeah, there we go. Script source right here. So I am just taking this entry, script:/source, and I'm using that down inside of here. So I'm using script source. The default had the head, the meta tag with the character set, and the title with the word document. If you want to have a different default title, you can come in here and change document to, that could be your default title if you wanted for every page. It doesn't really matter what you have, as long as you've defined it in a way that's JSON readable. You've got a number sequence that defines this. So 1 is document, 2 is heading. The $sign defines the fact that this is, the curly braces plus the $sign means that this is a string. So we've got a document and the word heading, the word document, the word heading, the script tag. Inside the head, we've got the meta, which is the one that's just defined in the UTF-8 character set. We have the title, and then meta mobile, which is the one that I wrote up above, and link::CSS, which is the one that I edited to change it so that the file name was main.css instead of style.css. So you make these changes into this file, you save it, close it, relaunch Emmet, relaunch brackets rather. Emmet will be relaunched inside there, and then you will have this new one. So just to show you that this works, there we go. I'll save that, and then I'm going to quit brackets, and I will relaunch. Oh yeah, the Emmet, sure, why not? Go, and I will relaunch brackets. Inside the snippets, there it is, the internets, it was saved. I create a new folder, a new file rather, sample.html, there we go, my exclamation mark tab, there we go, the internets. That was the change that I made inside of that file. So I will put the links to those 2 pages inside the comments. As always, if you have questions, please put them down in the comments yourself, and thanks for watching.